Good morning, Austin.
Hey, Dad, how are you?
I'm good. I'm coming to you from my buddy's house in South Georgia. So I'm at a new site for this podcast, but it's good that I'm in Georgia because we've got one of our favorite friends and former coaches that I know impacted your life as a player and mine as a coach. And it's going to be fun to tell his story. So today our journey takes us back to the blue turf of the Boise Broncos and inside the heart and mind of an All-American Bronco DB, a four-time 100 record holder, a former pro athlete and coach, sports performance trainer, entrepreneur and business owner. But more importantly, this is a story about a father, his commitment to his family and faith, his passion for building into our youth from the inside out. My name is Ken Karcher, and I'll be your host. Alongside me today is my son, Austin Karcher, our co-host. And today, Austin and I'd like to welcome Rashid Gayle as our guest to Awaken Kingdom Culture, where hearts and minds come alive, one story at a time. Welcome, Rashid.
Hey, it's good to be here. You picked a good day, man. You had to be patient with my schedule. I didn't know what was going on when I had some basketball stuff, I had football things, down here. Now, I don't live in Georgia anymore, right?
Right.
All right. So I done moved down here to a Christian school. We're at a place called Rocky Bayou Christian School, which is right outside of Niceville. So
Okay.
you go to Georgia, and I come down to Florida.
That's right. That's right. Well, Rashid, take us back to growing up in the Gale household and tell us what you'd like us to know about your family, maybe your brothers, sisters.
So here's the thing, it was much more quiet at my house as a kid. When I was coming up, it was just me and my mom, really. My father, I was listening to your last guest, and he was talking about a couple challenges he had, and I think it was Rainey was his name.
Yes.
He talked about how he got in some trouble and he ended up, going through the prison system. For me, my mother and father were never together. I always had good relationships with both, but early when I was developing, when I was 5 years old, 6, all my young years up until I was 12, my father I don't have memories of him being in my house because my mom and dad were never together. So I was raised pretty much as an only child. But when I was around 10 years old, that's when I started meeting some of my siblings. I met an older sister, I met a younger brother, and later on, when I was around, 20 something, maybe 24, I think that's when my youngest sister was born, 24, 25. So I actually have 3 siblings that are half siblings, and we're all close, but we never really lived together. So it's funny that I would be raised as an only child, and then yet I decided to, well, by the grace of God, I married a wonderful woman from Canada named Renee, and we have 10 children together.
Which we're going to get to later, that's for sure.
Oh, yeah, buddy. I just came back this last trip. We could have done our interview, I guess, last weekend, but I had to go to Boise. And I had a chance to go see guys I haven't seen in 10 years, but guys that I played with way back in 1994, and it was so amazing to be back there. And, we're talking about, hey, what was it like coming up? And I was talking to some of my guys now, 30 years. We've been 30 years. We've stopped playing, and talking about their upbringing and their fathers and stuff like that. And it was interesting that even though these guys are now about 50 plus, 52, they still have memories and thoughts about what it was like having their coaches, what it was like with their father in the house or not in the house. And, these things they always keep circling. What's it like when you're coming up? How was it in your house? And some things we didn't talk about. We didn't talk about that when we were coming up. We just were tough together. We were winning games and, chasing girls and having fun, and not being good Christians and not understanding what it looked like to be, honorable young men, but learning how to love each other and learning how to be, I guess, have a singleness of mind and purpose. And here I am now, 50 years old. And my mom is only 20 years older than me. She still lives in Georgia.
Mm.
She lives there by herself. My dad, he moved to Georgia, but when I was coming up as a young man, my dad wasn't there. So I was figuring things out the hard way. I had to teach myself how to tie my own shoes. I had to teach myself how to ride a bicycle, which those are interesting things to learn However, I would have preferred to be taught rather than having to figure
Right.
out. I learned to ride a bike on a flat bike. But I didn't know you were supposed to have air in the tires. That's how I figured it out. So the hard way was the way, you know. But probably the seed that stuck with me the most is two things. One, my mother taught me first that people can change. So when I was around 8 years old, you know, I didn't always understand there was something wrong with my home life. But my mother, she struggled with alcoholism. And at around 8 years old, she decided that was it. She was going to get right. She was going to get sober. And she's sober today. It's been, you know,
wow, awesome,
a long time. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know, I was 8, so that means I was, it's 42 years sober she is.
Wow.
But it was hard, you know, but she taught me that people can change, you know. And my father, he was like my hero, even though he was never in my house, you know, but he was an alcoholic and a felon.
Yeah.
So my mom and my dad, they both struggled with alcoholism and drug addiction, but they still tried to love me. They tried to do the best they could. And I'm pleased to say that that's not where they stayed. That's not where the story ends with my family. My mom she has been just so amazing. She put herself not only through college, you know, but she started on the at Heald College or something like that, some small place. She ended up working her way up through the assembly line at Hewlett Packard, ended up, you know, getting a big time job. Then that's what moved her to Georgia originally. And she got downsized and she moved to a different place in the country, went from California to Boise. No, I went to Boise. She went from California, she went to Georgia. And then from Georgia, she got downsized from there because Hewlett Packard was shifting how they did business. And she had to make a decision. Am I going to try and keep on moving up with them or moving somewhere else, or am I going to do something different? And she did. She ended up going back to school, getting her master's, you know, becoming, you know, she got her master's and got into social work and served with the government. Meanwhile, my father, when I was coming up, like I said, he wasn't there, but fortunately, he still was a voice of reason in my life. He frequently gave me good manly advice. He gave me good insight about, you know, hey, this is what it looks like to be a man. You know, with a name like Rashid, you shouldn't be eating pork. You know, some of that was a little bit of prison talk. You know what I mean? You know, he had some prison knowledge on him. You know, but it was well placed. You know, he did try to call me up. You know, he did try to encourage me. And fortunately for him, even though there was probably a part of me that was angry and hurt that he wasn't there, and I'd even communicated with him like at an early age, Dad, why are you not here? What's more important than me? You know, and he said those things, those thoughts, they resonated with him. I helped him to mature as a man as he struggled to find his maturity, you know, which, you know, that's not necessarily the way it's supposed to go, but it is what happened, you know. But God always placed in me this heart of like a son, but also this heart of wanting to also be, you know, honorable to, you know, my father, but also be an honorable son, and also one day to be an honorable father myself, you know, try and do all those things. He placed that seed in me at an early age. Wow. So then at 12 years old, that's when I really took a big leap. We moved from one coast to the other. At that time, up until 12, I was living on the East Coast. So I was definitely a northerner living up in a place called Goshen, New York, which is about outside the city. Really cool place. You know, I thought it was the most beautiful place in the world, but I hadn't been anywhere. You know, my mother told me, no, there's some better places. I promise, but there's some better places. And she was right. You know, I saw a few more things. I went to Santa Cruz, and, you know, then from Santa Cruz, we ended up moving up to Sacramento, and, you know, it was pretty cool. But when I was 12 years old, I met a key relationship. His name was Kenny Booth, and Kenny Booth had two things going for him. He had a wild, crazy, loving family that had lots of siblings, which I loved to be there as an only child. And he also played football, and he introduced me to football. And those two things obviously really shaped my life. The big family thing, I actually had that in my DNA too, because my great grandmother, she lived to be 105, and she had 10 children. And of those 10 children, I think 2 of them also had 10 and 1 had 11. You know, so the big family gene was in me, but I never thought about it because I was used to being an only child. I like things going my way. But hanging out at Kenny's house really helped me to, just appreciate the unpredictability of having people around. There was obviously they struggled with certain things they didn't have, but man, what they did have is they had love, they had constant relationships, they had just this concern for one another, they had chaos, they had joy, and there was always something to do. I was never bored at my friend Kenny's house, and I can tell you that stuck somewhere I didn't know. Because I actually tried to replicate that obviously in my life, and I had to go one bigger. He had 5, I went with 10. From there, from California, I moved up to Roseville, California. Got into some trouble when I was about 14 years old. Got mixed up with some guys in an apartment complex, and I didn't have any great ideas. So these guys gave me a couple, and they said, "Let's go try and steal a car or something like that." I said, "Okay." I wasn't very smart at that time, obviously, and I was the lookout, but I couldn't see what they were doing. So I'm the only guy who really got pinched. So, and then when it's all said and done, I also got the stiffest penalty. I got more community service than any other guy, and I'd never been in trouble before. But that was the beginning of God doing something with me that, we know life's not fair, but we also know that God has a plan for us. And I don't like being in trouble. That's a fact. I like keeping my nose clean. I'm not saying I don't like not doing things wrong. I just don't like being in trouble.
Yeah.
And that punishment, it really resonated with me for 2 reasons. One, because I ended up now having to clean courthouses in the grounds of where these guys were that handed out this judgment to me. I was raking and shoveling, and guess what? I'm an apartment kid. I don't do none of those chores. But the worst part had nothing to do with the work. The work was peaceful enough. The worst part was the ride to it. Every Saturday I had to go. And my mom wore me out. She would be talking to the car. And if you ever get in this kind of trouble again, I tell you what, you'll be riding a bicycle these 30 miles. I can tell you that. And I'm like, oh my goodness, Mom. And I'm sorry, Mom. I'm sorry. Oh no, I got to take time. This is my weekend. I'm supposed to be free. You know what I mean? And now here I am having to take you out there because you can't make good choices. I mean, she's wearing me out. And I say, okay, Mom, just pick me up in 8 hours. I shut the door. She shows up 8 hours later. I open the door. And another thing, I am tired of you. I promise. I got that reduced by 20 hours for good behavior. And I have never gotten that kind of trouble again. Those things sat with me. My mom she's amazing. It was hard being a single mom. My dad, he did his best, but he had to be more, since he wasn't present, he had to be more conversational. He had to be more like an uncle, if you will, than a father that was present, because he couldn't be obviously too strict or too heavy-handed, because 1, he knew that he was still figuring out life. And 2, he wasn't present. So he wanted to keep that door of communication and that relationship open. So that's how
Rashid, early in those early years, what role did faith play in your home?
Oh, none. No, we were not a Christian household. The only thing my mom really told me was, and it's because her family was kind of Seventh-day Adventist. And they were kind of a strict, Seventh-day Adventists are much more, they're very traditional, the church services are much more stoic, more pious, more quiet, not like the non-denominational Christian church that I got saved in. I can tell you that much. Way more peace, way more, the stained glass windows, hymns, quiet. I felt a sense of religion when I went to that church. So much so that, you can't be, chaotic. You can't be moving around. You move too much, you get pinched. I don't like getting pinched. I can tell you that much. So I was avoiding churches if I could. I had way too much energy for all that. So it didn't play much of a role at all. Yeah. The only thing my mother told me that left the door open was, she said, just make sure you always just do your part to stay close to God. She didn't say there wasn't a God. She wasn't an atheist. She just didn't like the religious traditions of Seventh-day Adventists, so she tried to avoid it. And obviously, I know now that on her side of the family, there were a lot of problems. On my father's side of the family, there's a lot of problems. My father's side of the family was Episcopalian, so that was like close to Catholic. But on my mother's side, they were Seventh-day Adventists. But they could be at church on one day, and they could be smoking weed and drinking on every other day, So she wasn't buying that. She was smart to say, something's not right here. There's something messy going on. it's not getting fixed through the church life. So you might want to just avoid that.
Right. So, Coach, tell us a little bit about your high school career, what sports you played, where you played it at, because obviously you moved around, and just give us a little picture of that.
Well, I was fortunate enough to, when I got into football, I was 12 years old. And, I was the fastest guy on my team and this is when there was kind of like the beginning of some of the travel football was starting.
Yeah.
So I got connected with a program called the Elk Grove Knights. And the Elk Grove Knights was a private, like you pay like $100, which at the time seemed like a ton of money, compared to Pop Warner, which was like $16 to play, rec football or whatever. So I went and I did that because my friend Kenny, he recommended, he said, this is where we play, but it's like 14 miles away from our house. So I don't know how I was going to get there. But fortunately, and my mom, she was, when the day was done, she was like, look, you're going to have to figure it out because I'm done, fortunately I got a ride with Kenny. I got a ride with the coaches. And this was the beginning of my love for football, but understanding the value of a coach. Like I said, I was the fastest, but I wasn't very talented. So when I say I wasn't talented, I had zero football IQ. The things that they tell you to do in football did not make sense. For example, I was an undersized guy, so running where everybody was didn't make sense. Give me the ball, I will run to the outside as fast as I can in any direction. You know what I mean? I didn't understand how to catch a football. I didn't understand how to block, putting myself between someone else and everyone that was bigger than me. So I wasn't very good. So very quickly, within 3 weeks, I worked my way from potentially a starting running back, a starting wide receiver, to a bench warmer, a big-time bench warmer. And I was comfortable with that. I wasn't very confident. I wasn't very skilled. I actually began by bringing books. I had books that I'm saying. I pulled books out on the bench. I said, which one of these books am I going to read on the bench today? But at the end of my first season, it was probably around, about 4 weeks to go. My coach took us all out for a meal, and he said, Rashid, we hear you've been asking some strange questions in the huddle. And those questions were a lot of whys. Why do we do this? Why do we do that? Which, players are not supposed to be asking those questions in the huddle. That's a sideline question. That's a post-practice question. Any other time, pre-practice, but not in the huddle. So when it's all said and done, the questions that he answered and this going out for pizza and investing in me, it taught me something very important, which was my thoughts, my limitations were not the number one thing. I trusted more on my coaches and their experience. So I'm going to lean into that. And I'm not going to worry about what may or may not happen. And that broke something free in me. And by the end of that season, I scored 4 touchdowns in 2 games. And then kind of the rest of my football career kind of took off. I did much better the next year. I had like 12 touchdowns. Then my freshman year, I went to a place called Valley High School, which was a major high school program. A guy named Ray Caruth came out of there. First round draft pick. There was several guys that came out in that area. But I got in trouble when I was 14, so Mom moved me up to a place called Roseville, California.
Okay.
And from Roseville, once again, I'm starting from scratch. They don't know me, and I still am undersized. I bulked up to 138 my junior year. So I was like a twig, but I was a starting free safety by the time I was a junior. Then I hit the weights hard, got to 145, moved to strong safety, my senior year, and got recruited as a corner to Boise State by a guy named Steve Barato, who was amazing, who saw something in me. I don't know what he saw. When I saw it on film, I watched the old tapes. I said, that kid doesn't look very good. I'd move on.
Tell us, Rashid, about your recruiting story and why did you choose Boise?
All right. It's real simple for me. I got lucky and God blessed me. Because I went on my recruiting trip and I thought Boise was amazing, and Boise didn't offer me. I went on a trip to Idaho, which was the big-time rival at that time of Boise, and I really loved it there. They had been winning. They beat the crap out of Boise several times. Like, at that point, I think they beat Boise, 9 or 10 years in a row. So they had all kinds of great jokes. They had this great camaraderie. Boise had a bad culture. When I told those guys, hey, on my visit, the coaches said, there's a chance I could play here. And they're like, man, they tell that stuff to everybody, man. They're lying to you. You know what I mean? They told us all that. Yeah. I'm like, okay, well, I'm trying to, build relationships, but
Yeah.
they're not warming me up to coming. You know what I mean? But either way, here's what happened. On the day of decision time, Idaho still had an offer on the table. Boise, they come to the table with an offer. And I wanted to go to Idaho, so I was going to call Boise and tell them no. But this is me by myself at a payphone, away from I was at Kenny's house. I went to the payphone to go make this call and take care of this business. And by the grace of God, I decided to call Idaho first. And I call Idaho and I say, hey, I just want to make sure that everything's good with the offer, and I'm ready to be a vandal. And they say, hey man, the guy who's recruiting me says, listen man, I got some bad news. John L. Smith, he does not feel comfortable with your academics. He's worried that you're not going to pan out. So he wants to cool off on you a little bit. I was like, what? Cool off? Does that mean he wants to wait? Okay, I'll wait. What are we going to do? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You want me to just tell Boise no, and you want me to wait and we figure this out? He's like, no, man, I can't tell you to do that. I think you got to do what's best for you. In this situation, you need to accept that Boise offer and move on. I was like, all right, man, I appreciate that advice. And I hung up the phone, called up Boise, said, I'm ready to be a Bronco. And the rest is history. And it was absolutely the right decision, obviously, but God had his hand on my life even then. I was clumsy. I was, alone in that decision. It was huge. Who knew? My mom was probably at that time, she was just sleeping. She wasn't worried about it. She figured it'll all work out. And, it did all work out, but, I wasn't being guided on that one.
Now, I know you mentioned it in the intro. You ended up being an All-American DB. You also ran track. What was your events in track? And tell us some of what you think now that you're a coach, looking at your own career. What were some of your greatest attributes, Rashid?
Well, I was fast, and I was a little bit stupid. And I say that, with tongue in cheek. Stupid was I wasn't smart enough to realize that I was undersized. I never walked on the field thinking I was undersized. I never walked on the field thinking that, anyone that lined up against me had something more than me. Everything that they had to do, they had to prove it. Yeah. They had to prove it. You had to go through me to do what you're going to do today. Yeah. And that made all the difference. Before I understood a lot about David and Goliath, I had a David spirit, which is, hey, I'm here. I'm here for a reason. So let's go to war. Yeah. And that's how I brought it. I was fast. I thought I was okay. Coming out of high school, I was probably around 4'6", 4'5" on a old school handheld stopwatch style. Wasn't the greatest, but I ended up getting a lot faster. I ended up leaving college in the 4.3s on my strength coach's watch. And I ran, my best time was a 4.4 on NFL Scouts watch. So I was pretty good at that. In track in high school, I was the anchor of the 4x4 relay, which we set a record at Roseville High School, which I think it got broke eventually. It was pretty good. We ran 320. It wasn't exceptional, but it was pretty good for our area. Yeah. I ran the 300 hurdles, and I wasn't very good at hurdler, but I was a good runner because once you take 100 meters off of that 400, it was a lot more fun for me. So I could run those hurdles. I literally jumped those hurdles like I was running away from a dog or something. I jumped with either leg. I was hideous. I mean, looking at me jump, it was crazy, but I could run. And I would just run like a madman. I was fearless. I didn't know that what I was doing, it was actually dangerous, and that I needed to probably have some technique. Again, I was just being foolish and just taking the opportunity that was in front of me. And I did pretty good. I set a school record there. I went to state in California. I took 6th overall, and then in college, I got a chance to run track there. I was the leadoff leg of our record-setting 4x1 relay team, which was pretty good. I'm sure they're better now. But at the time, it was pretty good. It was a great honor. I enjoyed running track. Amazing thing is my kids really followed in my footsteps with some of their actual skills. I don't know how I actually have 3 kids that are hurdlers that actually hurdle well. Like they are poised in motion. I'm like, where did that come from? I just did the race and I ran like a madman, and you guys are beautiful. I mean, when we get to my kids and we start talking about them, I'll tell you some of the amazing things they've done with hurdling. It's like, mind-blowing to me. The success they've had, especially the youngest. My youngest track competitor she's kid number 5. That's Selah, and she's only 13 years old. And buddy, she is setting the world on fire in basketball and track. She's amazing.
Now, you were a national champion, weren't you, at Boise? Didn't you all win the national championship or come in second?
I wish. So what happened was in 1993, all right, we had a brand new coach that came in who was amazing. You're talking about a guy that was a total visionary. In 1992, which was my first year at Boise, we play against him and his staff. They were at Portland State, Division II, and we're 1AA. So we had this ego thing going, like, there's no way some Division II program is going to do something else. I don't even know if they really prepared that week. They might even consider it like a bye week. You know what I mean? And it showed. When they showed up, first of all, they looked incredible. They looked like an NFL team when they stepped off the bus. And they buried us 55-12. They didn't punt one time. I was playing it a little bit as a true freshman. One of the key special teams I was on was the punt return team, and I didn't get to play. They never punted. They just buried us 55-12. That was his interview, apparently. He ended up getting the job next year. And then he comes in and he cleans shop. I mean, he cleaned shop. The Skip Hall regime, those guys got moved out. And then he comes in and he basically starts snatching all these scholarships. And they were doing a lot of things to try. They liked a lot of local kids, a lot of Idaho, Oregon stuff, which is fine if they're good enough. But if they're not, just because they're local and, you can dodge, I think what they were doing, they could dodge some of the out-of-state costs so they could break a scholarship up to get more players. Pokey was like, no, we're not going to do that. We're going to get the best guys we can get. And that means some of you guys are going to have to go. 3 of you guys are going to go. Whatever it is, everybody wasn't going to have to go. And and it's funny how, one coach, a guy can see and say, man, that guy's the greatest thing ever. And then another guy can say, man, that guy he ruined my career. He broke me. I thought he was incredible. All the guys I just celebrated with this last weekend, they thought he was incredible. And the staff, they were incredible for the most part. But if you were part of the people that they were asked to leave, you didn't feel that way. You say, man, right. I wish I could have been a part of that. Because when you asked did we win a national championship, we didn't. And we went 3-8 in 93, which was awful. That was part of the process. The next year, we had the second best turnaround in NCAA history. We go 13-2, win 10 games at home on the blue turf, and play for a national championship and lose to the great Jim Tressel and the Youngstown State Penguins as he claims his 4th national championship and buries us out there at Marshall. But it was an incredible run. We were an incredible team. We had this unique love and spirit of unity, and it was just such an incredible relationship that we had that they are still honoring us even 30 years later, even though we didn't win it, because we were a part of the culture that had to set all these key benchmarks. We had to meet all these key benchmarks in order for Boise to go Division I outright. Right. And if we didn't do it, the program might be in a different place today.
Yeah. What were some of your highs and lows in your career in college?
Well, I can tell you, in 1993, there was a lot more lows. I was actually talking to my defensive coordinator, which was Tom Mason. He's a great guy. I mean, I had so many great coaches in my career. Coach Gould was my defensive back coach, who ended up being the running back coach for Cal, and he went on to do so many different things. He's like an assistant head coach at Cal for a while. Now he's coaching with the Rams. But Mason, he really taught me about adjustments. But I was actually laughing with him about this very thing. Is that one of my low points that year was he was just, when I say he was great at adjustments, he always had a plan. He always had an A, a B, a C, a D. And we're getting our butts beat in that 3-8 year. And we're on the sideline. He's got us all circled up. He's like, he got his whiteboard and he's got his pen in his hand. He's like, listen, what the heck are we going to do? He said, I ran cover 2. I ran cover 3. I ran cover 1. I blitzed. I ran zone. What the heck are we going to do? You guys figure it out. And he slams the pen down and he leaves the circle. And I was like, man, we suck. I was like, we broke Mason, the man with the plan. We broke him, And he said, what he told me? He said, actually, that's one of my strategies. I do that probably once a year. I I do it every once in a while just to shake things up and see what people come up with,
Yeah.
And he was right that time. I don't know if it was total this magic, but nothing came out of it. We got pounded. But it did resonate with me that we were so poor that we couldn't run anything at all. As a matter of fact, we were so bad in the secondary that the next year when they were talking about the team, they kind of do the preseason talks. They said, the good news is the Boise State secondary is returning. It had all our pictures in the paper. The bad news is the Boise State secondary is returning. Yeah, go on it. We're going to get better. And we did. We did. I ended up having 7 interceptions. For a while, I was averaging an interception a game for the first 7 games.
Wow.
But Coach Gould, he was definitely a high point in my career. He taught me a lot of valuable things that I had taken to coaching. He taught me how to pay attention to detail. He taught me how to focus on what you can control. That statement alone, buddy, I could go across the country talking to coaches about focus on what you can control, because I get so frustrated in all these different environments with coaches that are just losing it, and sometimes I just say, I just wish that you guys could really buy into the focus on what you control. You're never going to get a ref to pick up a flag or to move on your behalf by berating him. And I promise you this, it'll never happen. If you can dog somebody out, if you could dog out a ref and get him to move on your behalf, buddy, it will change the game. We will become ruthless, untethered animals towards ref. If that would happen, that ref has to hold his ground because things are subjective out there. So focus on what you control is a big one. Pay attention to detail. That you need to be excellent. Another thing he taught me was, never think you've arrived. Keep on growing. He would specifically say, don't beat your chest and think you've arrived, because you haven't. He was good at knocking us down a peg, even though we were at that point 7-0. You know what I mean? Hey, don't think you've arrived. And the next week, somebody did knock us down a peg. Crucial. We were playing a team that was one of the weaker teams in the conference, and they beat us. We were winning 31-16. They ended up beating us 32-31. And that really set us in motion. Without that loss, I don't know if we'd have been ready to do what we needed to do and take everything very soberly, very seriously. We were starting to, pat ourselves in the back, reading our press clippings, all that. So
that's awesome. Austin.
So, Coach, how did your faith shape your identity as a player in college? When did faith start playing a role in your life?
So here's what I'd say. First off, Coach Gould was a coach that really, I think he modeled Christianity for me. Okay. He wasn't perfect, but he modeled, what I felt like a good man should be about. He was faithful. He was humble. He was hardworking. He was intense. He was, but he also could smile from time to time because he was a little bit older than us. He wasn't significantly older than us. He was really cautious about being 2 things: too loose and too much fun, because he's like, and he also didn't want, when I say too loose, he didn't give us a lot of free reign initially with our techniques and stuff. And he wasn't going to be too much fun. He didn't want to joke around us too much because he wanted things to be serious. He wanted us to take everything serious. Hey, man, they're always coming after us in the secondary. We can win games in the secondary because everything that goes wrong, when the defensive lineman goes the wrong way, hey, we clean up that mess. When a linebacker misses his thing, whatever, that guy breaks free, we clean up that mess. If we keep him out of the end zone, we win games. That's our job. So we weren't allowed to be loosey-goosey. Everybody else could be waving banners and missing sacks and breaking contain and all that. Woo! Oh, that's awful. Sorry. And we're like, our coach, he wouldn't allow it.
Yeah.
So in terms of my faith, I didn't really have any faith in college. As a matter of fact, a friend of mine, his name was Martez. His name is Martez Bennis. Martez said, when I became a Christian in 1997, and he's like, I told you going to become a Christian. I was like, bro, you did not tell me that. He said, I did tell you. I was like, man, when did you tell me? I don't have no recollection of that. And he might be telling me the truth. I just don't have any recollection of it because I was not thinking about spiritual things. I was thinking about my brothers. I was thinking about myself. I was all in on football and grades and all those things, whatever it takes to be successful in college and living a fun college life. That's what I was about, but I was not about God. Yeah. And it wasn't until 1997 that spirituality came into my life. Spirituality first, and then my actual decision to become a Christ following, born again, all in, Jesus Christ, he's my savior kind of man.
Yeah.
In 96, it began with me in the hallway at the Ramada Inn. There was a Bible convention going on at the hotel when I was playing for the Jaguars.
Yeah.
So this guy comes down the hallway, and he's wearing glasses, and just seemed like, I'll be honest, a nerd. All right, and he stops right at me. I'm reading my playbook. I'm trying to do the right thing. I'm reading my playbook, and he stops right next to me, and he says, "Hey, what you doing?" I said, "I'm reading my playbook." He says, "Okay, do you go to church?" And I'm like, "No." And then I said something. The next thing I said was like, I don't know, some kind of, enforcement of it. So he understood where I was coming from, And I said, well, because I don't go to church because man is flawed. Religion comes from man. Therefore, religion is flawed. That was my logic. And I thought it was like, it was the Three Little Pigs. I thought that was a brick wall I was standing behind. No one could penetrate that. And then he said something so easy and so smooth and so honest, it broke down all the wall, and I had to do a full reboot right there in that hallway. I don't even know how I was able to even hold my playbook in my hand. And he said, "Do you believe that God uses people?" And when he said that, I knew that my brick was not brick, it was paper.
Wow.
I knew it because, of course, I believe God uses people. Of course, I believe that. So as I was rebooting and everything was starting all over again, I was thinking, man, what's going on? That was in the summer of 1996, which I became a Christian in the spring of 97. But that was something that was hindering me from being fully open. And then in that window of time from 96 to 97, I made the Jaguar team. I got cut from the Jaguar team. Then I was on my own. I was doing some soul searching, trying to figure out, is this football thing going to be for me? I was training, I was developing, but I was trying to be better, not just as a man physically, but also as a man spiritually. I began to question some things. I found myself in church a couple of times. I went to church on a Christmas morning with no guidance, and I met a guy there that it was strangely enough, I just was meeting this greeter on Christmas morning, and he shakes my hand, and he really touched me because when he touched my hand, he had tears in his eyes. And I'm like, why is this guy crying in church? This is Sunday. I mean, it wasn't Sunday. It was Christmas morning. I don't remember what the day, if it was a Sunday or a Saturday, it was Christmas morning. And he squeezes my hand. He said, my son died this week.
Wow.
And he said he was 30 years old. And he was a tennis pro or whatever, or aspiring tennis pro, and he died. And I thought to myself, why would he share that with me? But here he is, this man, grieving the loss of his son, but he's in church, still serving God, loving God. Something about that's mysterious to me,
Yeah.
but mysterious good, not crazy. Something about that says there's something here that I'm missing. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Something here, that there's something very powerful going on with this man's love for God that I'm missing. But I didn't commit to Christ that day. It wasn't until 1997 when a friend of mine, Shelton Quarles, he basically invited me. He sent me 2 invitations in one day. All right. The first invitation was to go to a place called Ybor City, which was my favorite place to party. All right. And I said, no, man, I'm not feeling good. I'm not going to go to Ybor tonight. He said, okay. Well, tomorrow a friend of mine's coming to town. You want to hear that person speak, So I'm like, okay, yeah, because I was searching. I'm looking for. I'm trying to grow from the inside out. And buddy, I went to church that day, and the rest is history. A guy named Franco Gennaro blew my doors off with his testimony. I mean, I tell you what, he nailed it. He was a former athlete from Florida State. He was with Athletes in Action, and he's like, hey man, I was living my life for myself, flipping God a quarter, me and other athletes, flipping God a quarter, thanking the man upstairs after games, but every other day of the week, I'm living for myself. I felt like I was straddling the fence, he said, and I'm not doing as good, I'm not being as bad as I could be, but I wasn't being as good as I could be, and I knew it, and at the end of the day, everything he said, it cut me deep. because I felt like that's where I was at. I didn't have a true standard. I didn't have a north. I didn't have a Bible. I didn't have a God that I was honoring. I was making it up. I was freestyling, and I didn't want to do that no more. Even though the truth is, I do enjoy being right. My wife and everybody who knows me can tell you that I do enjoy being right. But I really was being more persuasive than right because I didn't have a true standard. I had some knowledge, and at times I had some wisdom. But without God as the standard, how can I truly be right? He is the man. Everything has to yield to his wisdom, to his word, his truth, his purposes. And he said, if you feel like I'm talking to you, you come up here. And I'll tell you, I was terrified. I was terrified. I've never been in a colder church. I swear they kept it at 58, if that's possible. I was shivering in church. But in that moment when he said, if you feel like I'm talking to you, come up here. And I was literally in the front row, just to his kitty corner right. So it wasn't a far walk at all. I broke out in a cold sweat. I was sweating like I had the fever. All right. But man, I got up, man. I found my courage. And I swear, I felt like that was the enemy. Last chance he's not talking to you. I heard him in my head telling me to sit down. He was not talking to me. I was like, no, I'm walking. And I walked over there. I accepted Christ. And even after that, before I left that church, I still had a question. And I was kind of pondering what I'd done. I said, man, I just made a big step. What have I done? And I started to walk over to my friend, Shelton Quarles. I was going to say something to him. He was in a conversation. And right when I got close to and my lips parted to speak, he snapped his head towards me. He said, it's only hard if you make it hard. And he went back to his conversation. And that was it. I never looked back. It's the greatest decision, clearly, I've ever made. My wife is the second greatest decision.
Thank you so much, Rashid, for taking us inside your heart. And you mentioned your pro career. You talked about being at Jacksonville. For our listeners, give us a little bit of your background of your NFL draft experience, if you were drafted and then bouncing around the NFL, and just what started the work in your heart that said, you know what, I may want to coach when I finish playing.
Well, where would I have been without coaches? Going way back to the beginning, like I was telling you, I played for the Elk Grove Knights. My first year, I met a coach named Coach Gary McVicker. I don't know where he is today, but if it wasn't for him, it would have been over there. It would have been dead in the seed, because the next year, I kind of got into some trouble. So when I was around and I say got into trouble, that was the thing that happened with I was doing the community service, trying to steal a car, even though I didn't touch the car. My trouble was being stupid. That's what it was. I was dangerously stupid. And hallelujah, God brought some people that helped, clean up my act. But my mom was getting fed up. I was starting to, fill my oats a little bit, being a little bit bossy, thinking I knew something when I didn't. So she sent me to go live with my aunt for a while. And so I wasn't living in my house for about, I don't know, a semester or something like that. And she also got frustrated with me, and she sent me to New York. And when I went back to New York the summer, I was about 13 years old. I was going into my second year of football. And something happened that really shook me up, because my father, as much as he was kind of messed up, he was still my hero. He was the only hero I had. But he came home, and that summer we were supposed to hang out. And, I was pounding his door. He was at my grandmother's house, and that's where we stayed, at my grandmother's house in Jamaica, Queens. And I was pounding on his door, and I hear him snoring, but he wouldn't answer the door. He wouldn't answer it. So I go out, and I go hang out in, right in the neighborhood there in Jamaica, Queens, with some other guys that I met with some crazy names. One's name was Pop. Another guy's name was Smack. Those are great names, right? And these are some friends I met, neighborhood kids that I visited with. I was completely square to them, because I talked like a Californian and they talk like New Yorkers. So, and I still talk peculiar anyway. My voice, I don't have an accent, but I was a standout. I was different. So, but then all of a sudden these fire trucks come and an ambulance come into the neighborhood. And I'm like, oh, let's go chase the fire trucks. Let's go chase the ambulance. So we're following, because we're just looking for something to do. And then it stops in front of my grandma's house. Now my heart's racing. And when I go in the house, they are bringing my dad down the stairs, and he had OD'd on heroin. And I thought he was dead, but I was afraid. I was afraid to talk about it to my mother. So, but I had to leave. My grandmother sent me home, and I didn't share why. So my mom thought that I was being even more hard-headed, that even my father couldn't handle me. And that's why I got sent home. And I didn't want to say anything that my dad, he OD'd on drugs. So I had the secret, and I get sent to my aunt's house, and it wasn't until much later that my mom found out, and then she said, "Why didn't you tell me?" I said, "Well, I didn't want to ruin my dad. I didn't want to ruin our relationship. I didn't want to mess things up,
Mm.
But in that window, Coach McVicker would come. He would drive 14 miles to come pick me up and then take me to practice and then take me home and then drive himself home. He would even have me sit in the front seat and have his own son sitting in the back. And that ministered to me too. It really did. It ministered to me that, he loved me enough to get involved. It wasn't that we always had these really deep and meaningful conversations. He just was invested in me. And I think I came up in a time when the simple connection of men was very precious to me. It wasn't that they had to tell you, hey, man, this is what you need to do, and this is how it is, and this is what it looks like. It didn't have to be this really tough blueprint. It was simple. It was just proximity, that you could share my space, that you would give me an opportunity, that you would hand me a football, that you would put me on the field. That says something to me. You believe in me, and I ran with it. So I did that fairly well. I tried to honor my coaches all the way up until 1995, where I come out, and now I'm going to do it again. And I had this opportunity to, after my senior year, my last playing semester is 1995, and then they're going to go D1 now. So they asked me, would you be comfortable giving up your scholarship, and in exchange, as you pursue your pro career, no matter how it goes, if you want to come back, we'll let you finish up. We'll give you 3 more semesters to make sure that you can get your degree. And I prayed about it, well, I didn't really pray about it. I talked a little bit to God, but it wasn't really spiritual. It was more like, I don't know, my gut, and I talked to my parents, more importantly, and I got their support. And, I gave up my scholarship and I pursued my pro career. And it was not easy because I did not get drafted. I did not go to the combine. I had to go the hardest way possible, but I was fortunate enough to have personal workouts. People actually came to Boise to see me starting in January, which a guy named Jeremiah Davis, I can't even believe I remember his name. I haven't said that name in 20 years. He came and worked me out, and I said, hey, man, we got an indoor facility we can work at. It's like 13 degrees out here. He's like, no, it's cold in New York. We got to run your 40s outside. I'm like, bro, it's not going to be what I want it to be out here at 13 degrees. I still ran okay, but, the New York Giants didn't call me. By the time we got to the spring, I got a chance to work out for the Jaguars, and things went well. And I ended up getting picked up by the Jaguars, making it through the training camp, making the team, beating out all their draft picks up to the 4th round. But, Coughlin was trying his best to build a great team. And, they were struggling. He was looking for answers. And I ended up becoming a casualty in season. So I got cut and got picked up at the end of the year by Tampa Bay. That's when I met the great Tony Dungy. And that step was the step. That was the biggest step. The biggest step in my life was going to Tampa, because that's where I met Shelton. That's where I got the invitation to go to the church. That's where not only did I get saved, but I also got discipled. And then that prepared me and equipped me with the ability to weather the storms of anything that come at you in life. That was huge for me.
Awesome. So tell us your coaching career. Where did you start and how'd you get into it?
Coaching career. All right. So I get cut from the Jaguars. I go to the Buccaneers, and now here I am playing with the Buccaneers. I'm liking it. And it seems like, when you're a pro, you got lots of money, but in the off season as an undrafted free agent, buddy, I'd have been better off working a real job. I would have had some money. I was working with literally, $400 a week. So $1,600 a month. And in order to get that $600 a month, you had to make every single workout. All right. If you miss a workout, no money, $0.
Wow.
But don't worry, I'm not missing a workout. I want to be there. So that's a given. There was other guys that they made one workout, they would make thousands of dollars per workout. And they still would miss them. Don't care. I'm like, buddy, just cut that check for me, brother. Cut that for me. But I ended up getting cut in Tampa in the summer. in training camp. And Tony Dungy, which I loved and respected, he ended up saying, look, we have to go another direction. He cut me fairly early. And he said, I'm doing that because I believe that you can get picked up somewhere else. You're doing well. At that time, I was second on the team in turnovers, in terms of creating turnovers. I was all in. I was doing well. But I had a couple minor injuries. And, I guess they had some other injuries like in the receiving corps. So they needed to make some adjustments. So they did. So I went to Canada. I played there until 2000. I played for the BC Lions, then the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. Well, I got traded to the Winnipeg Blue Bombers in '99, and it's in Winnipeg that I met Renee.
I was just about to say, is that where you met your wife?
Yeah, that's where I met her, and she is from Kelowna, British Columbia, but she was in Winnipeg. God moves in mysterious ways, and I met her, the first time doing a speaking engagement, and then the second time I met her at church, where she looked so different. She caught me completely off guard. But I'm not going to talk about that yet. I know I'm going to talk about my wife in a second. But what happened was I get cut now from the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. And I'm thinking, what do I want to do? Do I want to continue playing or not? I said, no, I want to keep playing. So I call my guy, Coach Mason now, the guy who coached me in college. He's going with the XFL. And I knew that because I had seen him randomly somewhere in the CFL. He was helping out. He was doing some scouting or assistant coaching or something with a CFL team. So I called my boy, and I'm like, Coach Mace. I was like, brother, the XFL is going to start up. I need another job. What's it looking like? He said, well, Rashid, yeah, there's going to be some jobs. There's going to be some opportunities. But, man, heck, you ever thought about coaching? And in that moment, I said, you know what? Talk to me about that. He said, well, when coaching, you get guaranteed salary. They cut you, you get fired, you get paid another year. And I said, sign me up, brother. Yes, I'm coming. So I go down there and I interview, and I think they go well, but then I don't get an answer right away. But at the end of the day, they do end up hiring me. I end up being the DB coach. It was a tough but special experience. Jim Kreiner was the head coach. Our league was, it was weird. The XFL, I went the first year, and they folded things they were trying to do with Vince McMahon and the guys. But we were all about football coaching. But one thing I learned is like the hours that they put in as coaches, as much as I enjoy it, man, I was like, I don't think this leaves room for family. I don't know. And at that time, I was not married. I was single as can be. I was single and no kids, none of that, no distractions. So I could be all in, working 19-hour days sometimes, because that's the way Jim Cryer wanted to do it. We work hard. We grinded. And when we were done grinding, we turned it. We took the powder, we ground the powder. And when the powder was ground, we put it in the water. We drank the water. You know what I mean? we were hard. We went hard. But we weren't winning because we didn't have no brains left after working so hard. So we ended up not going to the playoffs. We won 4 games. I mean, we could have done a whole lot lighter and still got 4 wins. I promise. We could have been a lot more enjoyable, But I did get paid for another year when the league folded. So I was trying to figure out what I want to do next. And then I had 1 year of salary left. So I just kind of started figuring some things out. Maybe there's a different path for me. So I got involved with sports performance stuff, started doing a little bit of training, personal training. And then I kind of ended up meeting, Coach Ken and the crew.
Yes.
Fellowship,
Yep.
Was around 2007, I think I met everybody, right?
2006, 2007, yeah.
2006, 2007. Ruffin Hamilton is the one that wrote me in. He's like, hey, brother, I met him at a camp with SCRA or something like that. He's like, man, there's a chance where, man, you can help us out. A lot of NFL guys as coach on the squad. Why don't you come help us out? I said, all right, I'll come check it out. And, man, what a great time it was meeting you, Ken, and the other guys. It was just Coach Lord did a great job of pulling us together. Of course, I don't like them socks. I don't wear crew socks to this time. And you see, I got a beard. He wasn't allowing that either. Like, man, this guy's telling me how to shave and what socks to wear. Come on, brother, just let it go. But, he was committed. We're gonna look like the same. I was like, you don't look nothing like me, and I'm not wearing it. Man, what an experience it was. That really got me into coaching bigger time. There was one other time that I coached before that when I was still playing. In between seasons in 2000, I had started coaching in the IPFL. And that's when I was kind of coaching pro athletes. It was like minor league arena football while I was still pursuing my pro career in Canada. So I would go back I'd play football, then I'd go home to Boise, go to school, keep on moving towards getting my degree, which I graduated in 2000. And then I would also, sometimes help out with this team. So, and I got a chance to coach some of the guys I played with. And then I got a chance to really experience what that was like, what Coach Gould went through with us. Because I got to coach one of my buddies, one of my very own DBs, DeJuan Miller, who was amazing and hard-headed as a player. But that's when I started. 2000, I got a little bug. Then in 2007, it really hit home. I ended up coaching with Fellowship. What an incredible year we had. And you really planted a seed with me, Ken. That story, did everybody know that story about when we got whooped by Athens Academy?
Tell it.
Oh, my goodness, man. All right, so Austin, were you there in 2006 when we were getting our butts handed to us all the time?
Yeah.
All right, so we go up to Athens Academy, and, Athens Academy looked like a little college. It was gorgeous. Right away, oh, my goodness, the butts were already tight. I could feel them tightening as we got on campus. As the wheels turned, everybody was getting more and more tight. I'm like, how's this going to go, right? So we got this gaggle of DBs that they have never experienced any kind of real nastiness. And Athens Academy was nasty.
Yeah, we played them twice that year.
Huh?
We played them twice that year in the regular season and the end of the season.
Buddy, that was not a blessing. You know what I mean? But here we are, and they are blowing the doors off us. I've never had this happen still to this day, where a player on the other team hits one of my players so hard that he hits another one of his own teammates, and they both got concussions. So I am frustrated. I mean, my corners are not doing well. The secondary was not doing well. They were just doing anything they wanted, and it's halftime. Boom. All right, it's halftime. We're going in, and I'm filling my lungs up with air, and I'm about to give them the business. I'm sucking it in. I'm like, ooh, and I'm just sucking it every step. I'm getting more and more hostile, and I'm ready to lay into them. And right when we get close to that little lame, what do we have? A little modular building we're going to have this meeting in. Ken steps right in front of all of us. He says, you know what we can't do? And I'm like, and I'm still holding my breath, ready to let it out. I'm like, I'm not going to let no breath out. And he says, we can't yell at them. I'm like, pooh. What? You can't yell at them. What are you talking about? We need to hype this thing up. We are getting buried out there. He's like, no, you can't yell at them. You can't yell at them because they're already scared. You can't yell at them because they're already broken. They don't believe themselves. They're down. We gotta get them up. We gotta coach them up. And I was like, that was one of the most important lessons that I learned about how to handle players, because it wasn't about me. It wasn't about my ego. They weren't failing me. They were trying their hardest. They just didn't know how to do what needed to be done. They needed to be loved. They needed to be supported. They needed to be, held accountable, but they didn't need to be buried. They were already crushed. These guys, they were full of honor. Those guys, man, David Rawlings and that crew, man, those guys, they wanted to. Martin Weatherby and that crew, you, Austin, those guys wanted to do right. They wanted to compete. They wanted to win. They just didn't know how yet.
Yeah.
And this was part of that process.
Yep.
So he saved me from murdering any kids that day. He saved me from blowing the door. I was going to shut the door. I was about to let him have it. But he taught us all. I don't know if anybody else caught the lesson, but it's resonated with me to this day and how I handle players, especially players like where I'm at right now at Rocky Valley Christian, where, I really see that it's not about what I know. What I know as a coach is second to what I can teach and what I can transfer to them. If they can execute, then I'm doing well. If they can't execute, it doesn't matter what I know. I could be Nick Saban. I really could. But if you can't get your players to understand, if you can't communicate with your players in a way that they can execute, and also understanding that there's a learning curve. It takes time to get this knowledge and sew it into your DNA. It takes work and it takes time. And you got to be patient. They got to be free to make some mistakes. You got to be able to weather that and ride that with them. Knowing that me as a player, I remember what it was like to be 3-8. I remember the times when I was terrible. The Coach Mason, the guy I was telling you about before, he used to say, man, we were the drizzling poops. We are the drizzling poops. He didn't use the word poops. You know what I mean? And we were horrible. But man, what a transformation 1 year can make. What a transformation 1 year can make. And we went from being that lame team that was getting knocked around to being facing Clinch County in the third round and losing, but competing. We had a good game plan. Our players are dialed in. We lost, but we played to win. And I think that resonates with all those guys. Yeah. We were no longer somebody's whooping boys. We were men that came to compete. And regardless of who you are, where you come from, we are here to do our thing. And also as believers, we can't just look at other people and assume they have what it takes to overcome us. Where does that come from? That's not godly. Yeah. That's not honoring your Father in heaven. Who says I can do all things. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. You know what I mean? That's my mantra. It doesn't matter how big he is. I'm going back to being stupid again. You know what I mean? I don't need to do the measurements. I don't care how tall they are. Today, my God is with me. Today, my God has brought me to this situation. And today, no matter what, I'm running through it. Yeah. And I want to teach other guys to do the same, not to question or wonder and have doubts, but to step up and meet those challenges. That is what it's all about. It's not about winning games only. If you can just win football games and you can't do winning things and have a winning lifestyle and understand what it looks like to win, which doesn't mean you're always winning. Winners don't always win. But a winning mentality involves embracing the process, facing the music, doing the hard things, picking yourself back up. That's what I'm all about. That's what I want to transfer to students. That's what makes it worthwhile. And that's why I kind of am in this young age group, because I think young guys need it more so today than ever.
Well, I think you're so wise. And what you just described is growth, because a good coach obviously gives your team an opportunity to win. But on top of that, they're also in the process of growth, and growth is messy. And sometimes you have to ride, the losses or the failures to get to the other side of growth. The story you just explained about Athens Academy, fast forward a year later, you guys beat them like a drum when they came to your house. Like you talked in college, you guys were 3-something 1 year, you're playing for a national championship in a year. Well, if you don't ride those waves and handle them together and work through it, that the growth never happens, because you quit on the process. So so kind of branching off of what you just talked about, what are some more of your personal philosophies about sports and leadership style, Coach?
Well, for me, talking about that team, my 1994 team, that team, one of the things that was really special about them is that we really had a strong spirit of unity. Before there was this catchword called culture, I experienced culture. And that changed me forever. It's the kind of thing that I always am striving to build into any program that I'm involved with. And I don't care about the sport. I don't care if I'm coaching women's basketball. I don't care if I'm coaching boys in football. I don't care if I'm coaching track. I want to have a culture that says, here we are together. Here we're going to run through it. Here, whatever the challenge is, we're going to face it. And here we can support one another. It's safe to fail here, because this failure is the road to your success. And I want you to attack things with reckless abandon without worrying about what may happen. We'll deal with what really happens. I'm not a big fan of this whole anxiety game. People are always worried about so much. I'm like, it'll happen or it won't happen. You will fall or you won't fall. You will run or you won't run. You'll win or you won't win. But you'll deal with the consequences or the fallout or whatever happens. But we have to face it first. And that's something that I find that sometimes kids struggle with. It's and I don't understand it. They're too smart for their own good. They're doing mathematical equations. I'm at a big brain school. The odds are, I don't know, Coach. The odds are, I don't want to hear your odds. This is not about odds. My God, he fills in all the gaps. Whatever's missing, he can provide. But in terms of the spirit of unity, I learned it with first my 1994 team. So when I became a believer later, I knew that this is going to be better. It's going to be sweeter. Only to find out sometimes it's not. Some brothers, they have your back and you guys are together. Some guys are, they're more transactional. They're not going to be very deep. It's okay. And I also learned about seasons. The seasons is probably one of the most amazing things that any coach can learn. That's very vital. Is that this season we're amazing. Next season doesn't mean we'll be amazing. As a matter of fact, when you have this great season, you almost think, hey, I think I got this thing figured out. I think I got it figured out. I found the gold. I got the secret. And sometimes, if you're Nick Saban, maybe you do find some secrets. Maybe there is some ways that, obviously when you're getting the best players, it doesn't hurt. But, when you don't have the best players and you're trying to still, build this culture of not just, having the best, but also thinking the best, working the best, committing to do your best. Those things are the things that produce long-term, regardless of the win and loss record, and that would be my thing. I could talk to coaches about those very things all the time. It's like, hey, fellas, don't let it be about you. You're dealing with people that today's young man is going to be somebody's old man, and how you encourage them, how you told them they have what it takes, that's going to last longer than you think. A lot longer.
Well said. Well said, Rashid. Let me interrupt you for a moment. I'm grateful for the opportunity that I have to do this podcast with my son, Austin. For the last 10 years, Austin and I have had many intimate conversations on his drive home from work. Some of these father-son conversations have been lighthearted, while others have been very deep and emotional. Over the Christmas holidays, we decided to start a podcast called Awaken Kingdom Culture, where we invite our friends to share their life-changing stories with you, our listeners. This podcast is done under our nonprofit, The Win Awakening, a sports ministry network for coaches, athletes, and those who lead. Our vision is to awaken hearts and minds, one story at a time. Our mission is to encourage coaches and athletes and those who lead to live from a place of victory, regardless of success, records, or the scoreboard. Our goal is to create safe environments where transparency and vulnerability are accepted, and value and worth are recognized in an atmosphere of love. Right in the middle of your mess, I'm reminded daily that the most important person of my day is the one in front of me, and that one matters, and that you are the one. WinAwakening.org is our website. I encourage you to visit our website where you can encounter the good news of who you are in Christ and what you already possess and how to live from it. There you'll find blogs, videos, Andrew's journal, and this podcast, Awaken Kingdom Culture, where hearts and minds come alive, one story at a time. I'm thankful for all of you who have given and are a member of Team Win. Awaken Kingdom Culture is listener supported. And if you'd like to support us, you can go to winawakening.org. We are a nonprofit. I encourage you to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and Instagram. And please like, share, and write a review on Spotify or YouTube. Okay, it's time to get back to the podcast. Well, let's jump to your family. I know we've talked a lot about them in the past, and I know it'll be a blessing to our listeners. But you mentioned your wife, but start with Renee and tell us a little bit about her and maybe how you met or what makes her special. How she make you a better coach and man?
All right, so she's very special, and she did not know what was inside of her. She is amazing. She had a whole lot of love in her. And I met her the first time in 1999 when I was playing for the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, and she was there as an athlete. At that time, she went to a school, I think it was called Briarcrest, small school in Winnipeg, and she was either playing volleyball or basketball or both. Wasn't as serious about sports, just loved them. she loves sports, and she's small, she's not very tall. So playing volleyball, she was the setter or something like that, but she's always very spunky, exciting, fun loving, but when I met her the first time, I just had a cool conversation with her. I didn't think anything was going to happen. A year later, I see her again, I'm going to church and I'm visiting a guy named Milt Stiegel. He said, hey, we're going to go to church and there's going to be some people there waiting for us. And they're going to help us get situated, get connected to church and all that. So I meet her. And when I see this girl, I stick my hand out to meet her. And actually, I think I saw her and we sat down and I was like, wow. Wow is all I could think, wow. She was looking sharp. Hair was just laid right, bright smile, browned up for the summertime, just looking gorgeous, So I thought to myself, I would like to meet her. I would like to know. I didn't know this is someone I already met. So we are sitting next to her in church, and then they have you greet people and, hey, turn around and greet a neighbor. So I stick my hand out to greet her then. And she said, oh, I know who you are, Rashid. And I was like, what? She said, no, we met at the speaking engagement. I was like, oh, that was you, huh? I didn't even remember it. She looked so different, because that day she was just, down playing in sweats or whatever. Now she's browned up, got her summer color on, and, just looking glamorous. And they said they were going to go out to eat. And I'd already eaten that day, but I was going out with them. Oh, I have to go. Yeah, I'd love to get some food at Earl's. Let's go get some food at Earl's. So then we started talking there, and we talked about a couple things, and we ended up hitting it off, and we ended up going to the movies, and just had great conversation. Always had great conversation. Which we talk like every day. Every day. I've been talking on the phone with her every day, talking to her face to face. We talk late, we talk early. We're always talking. So that's a special gift that we have between the two of us. And I ended up moving because I got cut. And then I ended up going and jumping in and coaching in Las Vegas. And we had the long distance relationship there. We continue to, kind of cultivate it. But at some point, something very dangerous happened. And the dangerous thing that happened was, as I was trying to figure out if I wanted to really be a high level coach, she tried to put pressure on me to take our relationship more serious. And it was dangerous because I wasn't ready. And I told her something that was very risky. And she said, my friends and I were talking, and they were asking all kinds of questions about where we are as a couple. And I said, well, tell them mind their business. But I knew where she was going. I said, tell them mind their business. It's not their business where we are. I said, I'm here, you're there, we're doing good. We're great. She circled a little bit tighter, She says, oh, well, they kind of asked me questions about, what our status is and stuff like that. At that time, I just wasn't ready to really do anything hardcore relationally because I was focused on being a coach. I was 100% about, in my usual focused fashion, about doing this coaching game, no distractions, So I wasn't like I was afraid that I was going to miss something with someone else. I just was comfortable where we were. Anyway, she comes out and says, look, I'm just wondering where we are. I made her say it. I just want to know where we are. And I said, okay, this is where it's dangerous for me, because once again, God blessed me, with her staying power, because I said, I'm not ready to commit right now. So I'm not trying to date anybody, but I'm not ready to commit. So if you need a hard answer, the answer is no. So you have to decide, are you comfortable with this or are you not? And she had to trust me, and she did. However, a few years go by. Now, with the league folds, I end up in Georgia. Now she's having a similar conversation a few years later. Now we've been doing this for 2 years, the long distance thing. But now she's like, look, now I need to know something. And this time, the Lord had showed me, you better not try that again. You cannot do that again, buddy, because you will lose somebody very special. And so I really prayed about it. And I hadn't really been praying before. I was really focusing on being a coach. And now, since the league folded, I was trying to figure out what's my next move going to be. Am I going to be a trainer? What direction am I going in life? And here she was. She wanted to know. And I hadn't figured it out. I just hadn't figured it out. And I was afraid to commit before I figured it out because I didn't know what she would get into. I didn't know what I would get into. I didn't know how hard it would be. I didn't know how easy it would be, you know? And, you know, guys are all about contracts, you know? So, but I felt a sense of urgency from her. So I started really praying hard. And God showed me that she was the one for me. And I didn't have to have these other answers, you know, which I didn't, you know, and I asked her to marry me. And the rest is really history. It wasn't an easy history. It was a messy history, but she was the right one. And now, if he'd have told me too much, if he'd have said, "Hey, you're going to have when I get you two together, you can expect a very large 10-person family. You know, you're going to grow to the size. You're going to be the 12 legs of Judah or something like that." You know what I mean? That might have scared me and her, but in as you say, Papa's wisdom. He gives us a little piece at a time what we can handle. And all I needed to know is that she was the one for me. That's all I needed. God has been faithful to me to give me simple choices. You know, I had two options, or I thought I did with colleges. One went away, I had one left. You know, I had one woman that was wonderful to me, and I wasn't looking for any other. And turns out she was the one. I had to go all the way to another country to find her. I had to move all over the place. I went to BC, went to Canada. I went to Tampa. I mean, I went a peculiar journey and growth to be ready for her, but she was the one, and I'm very grateful. She has been an incredible mother. You know, she's still so fun loving. She's so, and what she does though is she is actually the rock. You know what I mean? I have a tradition. We have a traditional life where my wife is a stay-at-home mom, and I always am doing everything else. You know, which sometimes she says, I feel like I'm a single mom, you know, but I said, no, you don't know single mom. I know single mom. Single mom is you are the person that if you don't work, you don't eat. And there's nobody that brings any food. That's what it looks like. You know, you're not that. I am not present all the time, you know, because I'm out there stirring up game, you know, I'm out there, you know, trying to make it happen, you know, and it's not always easy in this amateur level, you know, because that's the biggest problem. You're handling all these valuable things, these valuable boys and girls. You're investing and you're coaching and you're teaching them all these great life lessons, you know, and the pay is the only thing that's a problem. You know, there's not a lot of money in it, you know, but in so doing, it also gave me a lot more flex to be present for my own family of 10, the small family of 10 children. But for a woman, I don't think that it was, my availability was not what she thought it would be. She thought I would be more present. She thought I would be there for a lot more. And honestly, there was a time before we left from Georgia, we almost didn't make it. I didn't know it. I just knew that I was struggling badly, not because of her. I was great with her. I was great with my kids, but my responsibilities were really like, they were just spreading me too thin. I was feeling very anxious. I was feeling very stressed. And this opportunity opened up that allowed us to get on the same page, to have, you know, still coach, still invest, but, you know, be done in a reasonable hour. My coaching day is usually done around 6 o'clock, and then I'm traveling home, you know, maybe 5:30, but, you know, usually around 6. There's no weekend sports here. Everything is pretty much, and I say no weekend, I'm playing on Saturday today, but most of the time it's not like travel sports, which I had my own travel ball organization that I had started in Georgia. I was training people in the morning. I was working a job. Before that, I had a gym and this travel organization. I was coaching youth track too, you know, and of course I'm supporting all my kids wherever they went, you know. So I was spinning so many plates. I didn't know if I could keep it going, you know, but I didn't know how to stop. I really didn't. And this opportunity came up, and once again, God in His loving hand, He moved me. You know, He provided a way. I mean, selling a house in just a few weeks and packing up a house that we'd lived in for 10 years with so many people is insane. You know, that's insane. I tell you, I hate moving. I don't like even packing up my car, you know, but we broke down that entire house and moved 5 hours away to Crestview, Florida. Found a place sight unseen by us. Had to do like a Zoom thing. Met some incredible people here. God moved mountains to extricate the Gales from where we were and bring us down here.
Wow.
And I'm here and we're making it this. I mean, our family, I know I'm investing in people and sports programs. I'm doing an incredible job with that. God's given me the gift to invest in people and people receive what I give them. But my family has really experienced the best healing from being at a Christian school where all my kids are at one school.
Yeah.
All right. For no real cost to me. They have something down here in Florida that allows you, called Step Up for Students, that you can get these certain scholarships. So your kids can go, they can fill in the gaps. Also, whatever, anything is missing, I also get a special perk for working at the school. So I have 9 children going to a Christian school, Christian private school.
Yeah.
And I am working at that school and investing in the program stuff. But my family is getting just blessed. Mm-hmm. But it's hard. It's hard for them because it's not comfortable. It's hard for them because it's not like public school. It's hard for them because it's unfamiliar, but it's so good. Yeah. And they see it and they get it. And we're being blessed so mightily through it all.
So, Coach, obviously you talked about your wife. How would you want to describe your kids or tell about your kids or the sports they do? What would you want to share about your kids?
Wow. Well, we are the big 5, which is I have Matea, who's at UPenn, and she's there, I would say, on basketball scholarship, but they don't do scholarships in Ivy. But because I have such a big family and dependents and whatnot, and I don't make a ton of money, I can qualify for everything. Yeah. So she has benefited from my lowly position. She was able to get a high position. And last year she was the Rookie of the Year. Wow. My sons are right behind my second daughter, which is Niara. Niara is here. She is this incredible singer and athlete that can do track and basketball and did volleyball for the first time this year. But I think art is probably her greatest gift. And she hasn't really pursued that as much. I'm hoping to be able to get her involved with that soon. She sings the national anthem for the very first time. Never done it. And it's her volleyball coach that pulled it out of her and said, "Hey, look, you're going to sing the national anthem today." And I'll tell you what, Whitney Houston would have been proud. I mean, I've never heard it, and I'm not one to brag. Like, people don't know the incredible things that the Gales are doing because I don't blow up the world about it. When everybody else is, everybody's saying, "My kid did this and they did that." Oh, what did they do? They took 3 steps. Oh man, that's crazy. What did your kid do? Well, I mean, if you're asking me, my kid just set the region track record as a 6th grader, and she went to state and medaled and took 5th in the state in the 400-meter hurdles as a 6th grader at the high school level. I mean, if you're asking me, but otherwise I'm not talking about it. You know what I mean? And that's my 5th child. Then you got my boys, David and Isaiah. They're playing together, which is amazing. They're playing on the same football team. And today I have a special package in. So my younger son, he's going to get in what is called penny. He's like a dime, but I was like, man, we already got a lot of DBs out there. So you're a little Bella. You'll be penny. So, and hopefully that goes well. Then my other son, my older one, he starts at corner. And then I have, so that's 4 of them. So Matea's at UPenn. Niara's here starting in varsity, doing a great job with basketball and a great musical talent. Then I have Davin, who's he does track and he does basketball, but his best sport is probably football. He's a really good corner. He has his dad's instincts. He just doesn't have his dad's size yet. So hopefully not that I was big. I mean, I told you I was undersized. He's smaller than me, but he's got a great mind, an incredible mind. And Isaiah is a quarterback. Okay. An amazing quarterback he's like an Eli Manning type. Don't stress. Just always giggling, loosey-goosey. You're like, man, are you really taking this serious? And then when the lights come on, he makes these incredible things happen. I mean, I just don't know where it comes from. I mean, he is such a gamer. Yeah. It's insane. He had a highlight reel, no joke, that was 8 minutes long in 7th grade. I mean, it was like 8 minutes long of him just making passes, evading people, running, making plays. I mean, just throwing it, running it, shaking. I'm like, where did it come from? This guy is running the spread like a G. And he didn't get a single award on his team. I'm like, what? And we went to the championship. Now, we got blown out of the championship. And I'm like, man, how does that happen? Well, we didn't want him. We didn't want some other guys to blah, blah, blah. I said, well, that's not how awards work. These are not placekeepers. This is when you recognize people who produce. But nevertheless, he is an incredible dude, hardworking. I think he's going to be the next quarterback here next year. He also can play DB really well. He's just not very tall. And then there's Selah, who is not only this incredible athlete, who is now, she's leading our team now, our middle school team, to these great heights. They're 8-0. We beat a team that beat us 3 times last year. We beat them for the first time last night, and they won the championship. So they won every game in the championship last year, and we beat them last night. And we were beating them at one point by 25 points. And I coached that team too. Add that to my pile. So I'm coaching basketball and football at the same time. Remember from football practice to basketball game, blow in, hey, we're going to do this thing, and then we did it. But we almost blew it at the end. They keep roaring back. But she is this incredible point guard that's undersized like her mom, but fiery, incredible leader, character, hard worker, but a track athlete like I've never seen. And she runs the 400 hurdles in 105 already as a 6th grader. She's in 7th grade now. So her dream is to try and be like a Sidney McLaughlin. She set a region track record and, set what was the place? It was wherever they ran in Jacksonville, Florida. She set a meet record there. So she's in the history books as a 6th grader, and she's running varsity track. She went to IMG Academy and medaled there. It's just what she's done as a hurdler. And the 400 hurdle is the hardest race. I ran the 300 hurdles.
Oh, I
was
know.
thankful. She runs the 400 hurdles, which is a whole lap over hurdles. It would have been a deal breaker for me. I was like, you know what? I think that I need to stick with this 400. I reconsider, and she loves it. But that's not even the best part about who she is. She is the most helpful, the most gracious. She's the one that gets out of the car and goes to the back, and she has my heavy backpack along with 2 of her own bags, and she's carrying my stuff. Can I help with this, Dad? She helps the kids. She helps with the kids in the morning. Now, I got all these older other kids, but in the morning, they're trying to get their life together. They're not thinking about whose hair they're going to do and all that stuff. Not really. Not until all their stuff is done. But Selah puts other people first all day long. And then you have the wild bunch.
So the first 5 are the big bunch, or
that's the big 5. That's the big 5.
And the
Yep,
the wild
their
bunch
middle
is
school. Yep, they're middle school and up.
Okay.
I got somebody in college. I got 3 in high school and 1 in middle school. And then there's the wild bunch. Starts with Jayla. Now Jayla, she's number 6, and she is bossy, opinionated, high energy, fun loving. And she's bright skinned. So she looks like Shirley Temple kind of curls and stuff. She's the only one that has these hazel eyes, totally different look about her. And she has her own thought. She is a leader. All right. And then next is Lexi, who's a lot like Selah, who's very thoughtful, loves nature. She's really kind and warm, but she's also scrappy and thin. She's bony. You know what I mean? So she's like, hey, hold on. She's scrappy and she'll wrestle, and but she also is, Alexa means defender of mankind. She's also the informer. She is the one that is the witness to everything that happens. She needs to go into journalism because she does not interject. She flips the page. Oh, yes. At 10:17. Oh, yeah. Eli definitely did that. He definitely did. I told him don't do it. That's all I can do. I have to be a witness. You know that, Dad. So, and then Kaya, I told her don't do this. That's the next one behind her. Kaya and Eli are the wild twins. All right, they're a year and a day apart. And Kaya, she is a ball of energy. She never stops. And then Eli, he's my thoughtful boy. He is the one that actually is one of the more obedient children in the Gale household most of the time. He can follow instructions. He can get things done. But Kaya has her own ideas from the start of the day to the end of the day. And then last is my 3-year-old, Tasia. And she is just, everybody loves her. She might need to go into politics or something because she knows how all these different personalities in the house, they all can help her, help feed her, give her what she wants. Even people who are grumpy, they will always help her out. She knows how to handle people. And that's
Rashid, before we go to legacy, I've got to ask you, I'm sure there's been many moments, but maybe it's you're sitting on the couch at the end of the day, or maybe you're laying in bed before you close your eyes. When you look at your wife and your 10 children, what have been some of your conversations with Papa?
Well, I'll tell you, the first thing I said was, and this was really recent, I said, Lord, why did you give me so much? What did I do to get all this love, these people? you know, and it's a lot. It's a heavy demand. You know what I mean? Like, Lord, what have I done? I'm an only child. You know, I'm a know-it-all, you know, a selfish individual that came to you late. I've always been about my business, and I understand how to be about my business. What have I done to deserve this? What have I done? It requires so much. I am pouring all of it out. I used to have stuff. You know, I say stuff because I can't remember what it was like to have stuff because I don't have no stuff. You know, now I'm happy if I have a towel and a roll of toilet paper. That's what it's coming out to. You know, and I gotta hide both those things. That's the truth. I wish it wasn't. I gotta hide a fork, my pins, everything that I have. Every day is like I'm going rucking. I have to hide all of my most essential stuff if I want to keep it. You know, I keep my little toiletry bag. I'm ready. I mean, if I have it on my back, it's safe. Otherwise, people are finding my socks, my underwear, my forks, my spoons, my bowls. I mean, everything. You know, but God showed me when I asked Him. I said, "What? Why do I have so much?" And He said to me, He said, "Because it makes you better." Me left to my own devices, I won't be better. If I don't value money really. You know, I mean, I would love to have more of it, but not because I'm not financially greedy. It's never been my thing. I never was after stuff. I wasn't after fancy cars. I wasn't after the status that those things might bring. That was never my thing. You know, I wanted to enjoy life. I wanted to be a lover of people. I wanted to help people get better. But I also wanted to have family. And I want to be available for family. And God, He knew my heart. And He gave me an abundance of that. But He also knew that me having hardly nothing is better. I'm better for having nothing than having more. You know, there's nothing that they bring that I'm better with. There's nothing. I mean, I wish they didn't take some of my stuff. You know, like I need my toothbrush. you find your toothbrush somewhere next to the toilet. That makes you uneasy. You know what I mean? You know. But at the end of the day, man, when they start me off, they're busting in my room. They're knocking on the door. They need Dad to come tuck them in. They need Dad to tell them a story. They need Dad to pray for them. They need Dad to let them know it's all right. You know, what do I need? You know, I don't need much. You know, I'm getting a chance to experience what God talked about. It's better to give than receive. You know, but I am receiving. You know, they look at me with love. They look at me in a way that is, they get it. You know, there's a peace that's on them. They're so blessed that they don't know a lot of the things that I experienced. They don't know what it's like to not have a father. They don't, and don't get me wrong. Like I said, my dad and I are really good. We talked yesterday, you know, but not having a father in the home is different than having a father in the home. Not having two parents in the home and seeing that union, that love that we have for each other, to see us, you know, we really love each other. I love Renee. I'm blessed by her. I don't love her less after 20 sweet years of marriage. I love her more, you know, and she's almost 50 herself. You know, of course there's beautiful women out there. Of course there's handsome guys out there. But the beauty of marriage is the depth. It is the years. That is the sweetness. We have this trust, this knowledge of one another. There's no fresh start that beats that on purpose. Now, if something were to happen and you had to, I get it. You know, sometimes that happens. But man, where would I be? Where would my life be without Renee and what I've been able to step out because she was willing to stay in. You know, if I couldn't have impacted anyone. So as much as I coach and develop and invest, if she doesn't take care of our tribe, I don't know how it works. You know, and she says sometimes she doesn't see that value. I got to constantly remind her of this. Honey, where would our children be? You bring a peace and a stability that hits the soul. They don't know what it's like to be unsteady. They don't know what it's like to wonder, is mom going to be home? Is what's going to happen? They're steady. They're confident. They are, you know, they have all these things that I did not know when I was coming up. Not because my mom was bad, but because she was a single parent and she was working and then she was tired. You know, and sometimes before she was 8, she struggled with alcoholism. So they don't know some of those pitfalls, you know?
Well, let's go to your legacy, Rashid. And I just want to ask you, if you had one final message for your children, what would it be?
Man, the final message, man, you got to trust God. That would be my thing. More important than anything else, you got to trust God, because God is worthy of your trust. You know, before my first child had come into the world, you know, we were actually at the first reunion for Boise State of our that major team, the 1994 team. It was 2004, and we were there around October, and Renee was there, and she was young, and I was young, and you know, that was 30 years ago. Or was it? Yeah, it was 20 years ago. So it was 2004. So, but some woman saw her there and said, "You're pregnant," like prophesied to her, and that freaked her out. She didn't know she was pregnant. So she goes in the bathroom and she takes a pregnancy test at my friend's house. You know, I was staying with a friend of mine named Tim Foley. And she says, "We're pregnant." And I'll tell you what, once again, Coach Gayle was terrified. I mean, terrified. That sweat was back again. You know, I was sweating again. I was like, how's this going to work? I mean, because we are fresh out the boat. You know, I was a young entrepreneur, you know, starting this personal training game. And when you don't work, you don't eat. And I've been off for months. So I have hardly no cheddar, you know, no money working, nothing rocking. And here we are on this little sneaky vacation, which there was a part of me that always said, you know, I got work to do. You know, I don't know if I even have time for this moment, you know, but here I am trying to take it out. And now I find out that we're pregnant ahead of schedule, you know, and I was really terrified for about, I don't know, somewhere between 10 and 30 seconds. But in that 10 and 30 seconds, God put me at ease. Mm-hmm. He said, "Hey, do you think this is the child that's going to break me? This is the one that's going to be too heavy for me to carry? You know, after all you've been through in your life, you think this is the one that's going to be too much?" And I was like, how silly I am. You know, how silly. So obviously I got the message and I let it go. And
thank you.
And I'm like, you know, the legacy is, you know, I don't know what tomorrow will bring. But the truth is, people, they put too much weight on trying to know. And that paralyzes people from trusting, being in the moment, letting Papa be Papa, letting him come through. He is worthy of our trust.
Yeah.
You know, and that's the thing I really want my kids to get. I know there's times when they would like to have more, and we don't. But God has met our needs. I mean, the fact that we're here, that we move around, they don't know what it's like to stick their hand in the refrigerator and hit an empty refrigerator. Like they say, there's nothing to eat. I'm like, what? You don't know nothing to eat. You never know nothing to eat. Nothing to eat is empty refrigerator. You're looking at butter and a mustard packet. That's college life. You know what I mean? That's nothing to eat. You know, you don't know that. You don't want to eat that. You don't like that. Save that. Save that thing that I said. Don't say what you said. There's nothing to eat, because God has faithfully provided in every way for our family. The way they've come into the world, the way that me and Renee have been able to move around, the way that we have multiple vehicles. I mean, God has provided, and it's a miracle. It is a absolute, every day is a miracle at the Gayle household. Like, I don't know how I got through last week still today, you know, but God is, you know, that's it. You know, you have to trust God. You do that, you know, you can really do that with a pure heart. Then you'll be able to not only be blessed, but you'll also be able to bless others.
Wow. What has been the most significant moment in your coaching career and spiritual journey?
Significant moment in my coaching career. Well, I mean, it was pretty serious how we did things at Fellowship. You know, that was a pretty good year, going from being 4 and beat down to being 11-2 and losing in the third round of the playoffs. That was pretty amazing. You know, in terms of seasons, you know, but those guys were also, you guys were all a special group. You know, I really enjoyed, obviously, the staff I was with. It was from top down, it was pretty good. Probably one of the most special parts of that season, though, had nothing to do with the games. One of the most special parts of that season was a thing that I had replicated in those DBs' lives, which was our DB meetings that we met on Thursdays.
Yeah.
And we would go, and the parents, because they were amazing, they would host the DBs or defensive players, and they would feed us this meal, and we'd all hang out, and we would eat food together. sometimes, play some little silly games, whatever they had there. And then we would watch film, and that was one of the most precious things that I had experienced from my high school career.
Yeah.
That fellowship, true fellowship. We were at fellowship, we had fellowship, but that the parents supported it and the kids loved it. And I hope that they're replicating that today if some of them are still coaching. I haven't yet been able to replicate that here yet, but it is coming.
Yeah.
Because I think I have time. The hard part for me here is that, I do multiple coaching sports. So sometimes there's these overlaps that make it hard. I'm sometimes spread kind of thin.
Right.
Like thin.
Rashid, when somebody encounters Rashid Gayle, what do you want them to experience and how would you want to be remembered?
Ooh, let's see. Well, I want them to think, one, that I'm a believer, and that two, that I believe that God can do all things, and that you should be fearless when it comes to your life. When you trust God, you can be fearless because you don't have to know. That is the best thing that God did for me, is that he unleashed me to be bold enough to say, I don't have to have all the answers. And I'm glad, because if I had all the answers, if I had to do the calculations of what it takes for me to get through a week or a month, it doesn't really add up very well. That's for me today. And if I saw it coming and I would have done the math way in advance, maybe I make different choices that would have been wise, even might have been practical, but it wouldn't have been best. It wouldn't have been God's best, So trusting God, allows you to be fearless. Recognizing that he's worthy of trust allows you to be fearless. And I think that's one of the things that I often want to talk to guys, because my wife and I, it's strange when it comes to our children. The conversations that I have with men, the conversations she has with women can be so different. Because for her, she often hears judgment. She often hears, that people are kind of critical of us, like we're careless or sloppy or, inconsiderate by having a large family. That's what she kind of hears. More negative energy is what she hears. While me, on the other hand, I always hear, man, that's such a blessing. I hear that so much. Man, and even when I talk to women, I wish I would have had more kids. I hear I wish I would have had more kids more often. If I had $1, well, I wish I had more kids. And I say to myself, what stopped people from having more kids? What stopped them? Usually what happens is that there's just a calculation we do. We say, this is hard, so the next level is going to be harder. Which is actually some of the same calculations that kids are doing today that's stopping them sometimes from even pursuing the next level of their sport. They're saying right now, because it's so overwhelming, the next level is so difficult, or they anticipate it's so difficult, they don't want to even pursue it.
Yeah.
Isn't that strange?
Yeah.
They think this is challenging. I'm barely making it here. I can't take the next one. They opt out, which is crazy to me. Opting out.
Yeah.
I level up when the next level shows up. That's how it works. But I would want people to know those things. Trust God, be fearless. He's worthy of trust.
Great words. Well, let's talk about final words. It's my favorite time when we ask our guests if there's maybe something we haven't asked you or you would like to share. But just take a moment, Rashid, to share what's on your heart. Final words to our listeners, and then Austin will say something and I'll close us.
Final word to your listeners is be bold. Be bold, man. Trust God. God has he has unlimited power, which we know. He has unlimited resources, which we know. But sometimes in the practical execution, we don't always trust God. Or worse, we don't like how God is doing his thing. It's got to be this way. This is the way I want it to be done. This is the way I like it. And God is not beholden to us. If he sees fit to give us anything, to provide the opportunity, we can allow him, who is wiser than us, to do what he does. So, trust it. I think the best thing that's happened to me is that I took my hand off the wheel to some degree, and I've embraced the uncertainty of tomorrow. And I wish other people had the courage to do the same, And I don't think of it as courage. I think of it as wise, because having to know is more dangerous than not knowing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I'd rather just put one foot in front of the other, commit to, honoring God and do what I can do, which it really comes back to the focusing on what you can control. There's so much I can't control, but my attitude and my faith and my my ability to love others and impact others and try and see them where they are and encourage them the best I can, those are the things that I can do. So that's what I would say. Do that. Be bold, brothers. Be bold.
Coach, the two words that jump out, one, I played for you for 1 year, so that was one. I saw these things back then, but even just listening now, it's just a great reminder. Is one, you're a person of great joy. Just sitting here listening to you, it's just, it flows out of you. You're very passionate, and then the way you communicate. You do a great job of communicating the simplicity, but the challenges of faith. We're literally learning how to be comfortable, not knowing, and just taking the next step day after day. Not worry, trusting that, hey, if God's going to provide a 10th kid, I'll walk into that season of life and do the best I can. And if he provided it, he'll supply what I need.
That's right.
Or what, whatever job I need, or, obviously you were super talented. Not many people can just make it to the NFL. Obviously you played, you talk about being undersized and just, working your way to that. I remember you were always, you would coach our high school. You'd be going and doing the sports performance. And you were all over the place. So you've always worked hard. But what I really enjoyed today that I thought was really special for me is you did an unbelievable job of highlighting where God showed up in each moment of your story. Even when we talked about the beginning of your story, you said, my faith wasn't a big part of my life then, but the truth was that God was still back there then. You know what I mean? Like you come back and you talk about how you end up at Boise State. You're like, by the grace of God. Well, at that point in your life, you said he wasn't a big part of it, but his hand was still in movement and he was still pursuing your hearts. And then the seeds that he planted from, a guy in a hallway that, makes a comment, because we've been talking about the parable of the sower, and just a little seed. It didn't change your path at that moment, but what it did is it started asking questions. And then, you go and a buddy invites you to a party. You didn't go to the party, but you go to the church that next day. And that just gravitates you. He brings you up to meet your wife in Canada. And, I don't know. I just thought you did an awesome job of just of taking us through and showing how Papa's shown up and loved you, pursued you, and was present even when you didn't even see it. And, you're just a great man of faith. And I know because I've been coached under you. You're a great coach. You were always very detailed. I'm just thankful for the year that we've had, and I know you and my dad have had a great relationship. And once again, you're a blessing to whoever you cross, because you carry that joy of the Spirit where you go.
Thank you for that.
Austin, you stole my first word, because when I listened to Rashid today, and I knew this was coming, but wow, I'm just, Rashid, you blessed me today. You are contagious. Mm-hmm. I think of in the scriptures it talks about unspeakable joy. And just this past week, I've been talking to Papa about that. I was like, what does unspeakable joy mean? Well, he answered it. He showed me. It's Rashid Gayle. You got a beautiful smile. Obviously, I've met your wife and some of your children. Just a beautiful picture of Papa and his love for us, and we're his children. And like you said,
even without the high socks and having the beard.
I'm low socks, no shows.
But your passion is unbelievable. And sometimes you can have bad passion, but I mean, your passion is just so encouraging to people. And I know that those that listen to this will be really encouraged. But it's just, it's growth. Like we talked about that, and the manifestation of Christ in you, the hope of glory. And I just am so encouraged by our time together today. And Austin and I are grateful that you would give us the time to share your story with us and our listeners here at Awaken Kingdom Culture, where hearts and minds come alive, one story at a time.